Museum Relic. One morning, Edward was shunting in the yard when the fat controller came to see him.
Good morning, Edward. Good morning, sir. I need you to pick up a train from Wellsworth and take it to the museum. It's an important train full of old relics and valuable treasures. Yes, sir. This train has fragile contents and needs to be handled with care, which is why I chose you. Can I count on you to make sure this train and its contents are delivered safely? Of course, sir. You can rely on me. Excellent. You may go now, Edward.
Once Edward left, there was a little green tank engine who had misunderstood everything that he had heard. Back at Knapford Station, the engines were waiting for their trains, when Percy rushed in.
Edward is going to be put in a museum!
A museum? Nonsense, Percy. You must have misheard.
It's about time. That kettle should have been put in a museum years ago.
Oh, shut up, Harry. We all know that Edward wouldn't be put in a museum at this time and age.
But it's true. I heard the fat controller say it himself.
The engines were not convinced.
Percy, unless you have some proof that the fat controller is going to put Edward in a museum, I suggest you get back to work, instead of spreading rumors.
But I know what I heard, Gordon.
Well, I don't believe you one bit.
The guard's whistle blew and Gordon huffed away.
I don't believe you either, Percy, but I am headed in that direction, which means I will find out myself whether or not Edward is being put in a museum.
As James steamed away, Percy was still left with Airy.
I wouldn't listen to them, Percy. Why don't you go tell the other engines? Perhaps they'd be more interested in what you've heard.
Percy wasn't so sure, but he still wanted to anyways. Meanwhile at Wellsworth, Edward had arrived to take his train, where Hero was waiting patiently for him. Right on time, Edward.
Thank you, Hero.
Now you must be careful. This train is very important.
I know. The fat controller already told me about it.
Good. We wouldn't want anything on the train to be broken.
I can assure you, Hero, everything will be fine. I must be off now. Goodbye.
And Edward made his way to the museum. Once Edward had arrived, he was coming in slowly when he ended up derailing on a set of faulty points.
Oh dear, Edward, I'm sorry. The workmen and I have been trying to fix those points all day. Are you alright?
I'm fine, but what about the train?
Oh, don't worry, Edward. The train is fine. I'll have you back on the track in no time.
Once Harvey had the breakdown crane situated, Edward was soon being put back on the track. But then, James arrived.
Oh no! Percy was right. Edward is being put in a museum. I must tell the other engines at once.
And James raced back to the sheds. Back at Tidmouth, Percy was discussing with the other engines of what he heard.
Don't be silly, Percy. You have nothing to worry about.
You're probably right, Henry. They said I couldn't possibly be...
Right! Percy was right! I saw it myself. Edward was already being craned inside.
The engines were most surprised.
Right then I know what we must do. Tell all the other engines and gather them here.
And Henry raced away to tell all the other engines.
You all heard him? We must tell the other engines. This is important.
And James quickly followed Henry. The news spread like fire across the island. With every engine they could, they told everything they had heard and seen about Edward. And soon enough, Tidmouth Sheds was filled to the brim with engines.
So what are we going to do? A depot station again?
Deputation, Percy.
No. We require more extreme measures. We must go on strike.
Back at the museum, Edward was helping set things up. He was happy and willing to help Harvey, until Bill puffed in. Have either of you seen Percy? He was supposed to bring some empty trucks. I haven't seen him, but I could get some for you if you'd like. Yes, please, Edward. We're very busy and we need all the help we can get. And you shouldn't have to worry about things here. I'll handle the rest. And so Edward left the museum and went to fetch some trucks for Bill. When Edward had arrived at the yard, it was completely deserted.
That's strange. Where could everyone be?
Just then, Diesel rolled in.
Diesel, do you know where everyone is?
No, and I don't care. What do you want?
Well, I came looking for some trucks because Percy never arrived at the clay pits. Do you know where they could be?
They're over in that far siding over there, but you may have to do some shunting to get to it.
All right, thank you.
It wasn't just the yard that was completely abandoned. All over the railway there were trains just left on the line or at station platforms, blocking the way of other engines trying to get through. Inevitably, all this chaos reached the Fat Controller, who was getting calls left and right from station masters to yard managers to even the passengers.
Dear oh dear, what is going on? I keep getting complaints from all over the railway that there are no engines, and all the trains are stranded.
If I may, sir, I did hear tale of something going on at Tidmouth. That might be the best place to start searching for answers.
Very well then. Hero, I need you to take me there.
Yes, sir. Right away. And once the Fat Controller climbed aboard, he and Hero set off to Tidmouth Sheds. Once they had arrived, there was a great commotion at the sheds. As the Fat Controller stepped down from Hero's cab, he ordered the engines to be quiet.
Silence, all of you.
But the Fat Controller's voice was drowned out by all the noise.
Thank you, Hero. Now, what is going on? All over the island, there is confusion and delay. And all of you are sitting here at the sheds making a racket. Explain yourselves at once! Sir, you can't possibly put him in a museum. It's
Disgraceful, disgusting, despicable.
disrespectful. I don't know what you're talking about. What I do know is that all of you are causing confusion and delay. And like I said, I wanted you to explain yourselves. What exactly are you doing?
Soon, Edward arrived with Bill's trucks.
Here are your trucks, Bill. Sorry it took me so long.
It's fine, Edward. I'm just glad we got the trucks at all. And it's a good thing you got here, too. There's a big commotion going on at Tidmouth Sheds. And I don't know, but I think it had something to do with you.
Alright then I'll be on my way.
I'd also suggest that you hurry.
Indeed. Usually situations like this always end in trouble.
And Edward puffed away to the sheds. Once he had arrived at the sheds, he was most surprised.
What on earth is going on?
He saw that the Fat Controller was speaking sternly with all of the engines.
Stanley, what is going on here?
We're all going on strike because the Fat Controller is putting you in a museum, Edward. Stanley? What? Edward? When they had heard Stanley, everyone looked over and cheered when they saw Edward. Thank goodness, Edward. We all thought they were putting you in a museum.
And because of that, my railway has come to a halt. I want to know where you got this silly idea in the first place.
The engines glared at Percy.
It was me, sir. I overheard you telling Edward to go to the museum. That wouldn't mean I would send him there for good. I only told him to take a train there. I don't want this happening again. So next time you hear something like this, come to me first. Now, I need you all to be really useful once again.
And so the engines all went back to do their jobs. And even though most of their trains were late or delayed, they still made sure to get the island back in working order. The engines worked their hardest to clear all the lines and platforms that they had left from their previous trains. And one thing they knew for certain is that Edward would not be put in a museum anytime soon. At the museum, Percy had arrived with a train of passengers, where Harvey, Edward, and the Fat Controller were there.
Well, Percy, what do you have to say?
I'm sorry for causing confusion and delay, sir. And I'm sorry about spreading rumors about you, Edward.
It's all right, Percy. But next time you hear something like this, come to me first, instead of making my railway come to a halt. Do you understand?
Yes, sir, I understand. And Percy puffed away.
And you, Edward, I thank you for your help for the museum and getting the train here safely.
You're welcome, sir.
But now that I think about it, I certainly am glad I'm not becoming a part of it.
Indeed, Edward. Indeed.